Welcome to Willamette Wake Up. I'm Melanie Zermer. And many cities in Oregon are struggling to pay for city services that residents are used to enjoying, which puts city officials in a bind, either find more revenue or cut services. And today we're focusing on the city of Independence in Polk County to learn more about how this city of about 10,000 people with an average age of 30 years and medium household income of about $80,000 is navigating. Kenna West is the city manager of Independence, and she'll help us understand the underlying issues of today's budget challenges and what's at stake, and how the city's engaging residents to ensure city decisions reflect residents' collective wishes. And also with us is Mayor Kate Schwarzler. Thank you both for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Melanie. It's a pleasure.
You know, we often don't hear from our city managers. You know, the mayors are up front. And so I think being a city manager behind the scenes is an interesting job. And I'm curious, how long have you been in this position, Kenna?
I've been with Independence for about 2.5 years. I've been a city manager for, I want to say 8 years. And I've been in city governance for about a decade and a half.
Okay, and as I recall, when I was doing a little background research on you, Kenna, I found out that you worked for the city of Salem.
I did. That is where I started my government work, and it was such a blessing. I worked as the assistant to Mayor Anna Peterson, and she was an incredible mayor, absolutely incredible. Mayor Kate reminds me of her very, very much, so we're pretty blessed to have her.
Thank you.
And Mayor Anna was also the first one to tell me I needed to be a city manager. So she's the reason I'm sitting here today.
And I'm wondering about, do you go to city manager training? How does one become a city manager?
There are multiple routes. A lot of city managers do have a degree in public management. I started out as a lawyer, and I practiced law for a number of years, then went into government service, learned all the things in the trenches in government service, and after Madam Mayor said, become a city manager, there I went.
And here you are with the city of Independence.
I'm imagining like a city manager boot camp.
Yeah. That's what this was, right?
Yeah. It feels like you get sent off and get trained.
You do.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of training too, right?
Yeah.
We have the Oregon City County Managers Association, the League of Oregon Cities. They're all there to wrap around new managers. And those of us who are now perhaps more seasoned, we help all the new city managers coming in. So there's kind of a boot camp, Mayor.
Yeah. Trial by fire.
Yeah. So you came in, I think you said about 4 years ago, and that's when we were really starting to hear a lot more about the budget crisis that most cities are facing today. So why don't you give us a little bit of background on the City of Independence's budget challenges, how that might be the same or different than some other cities?
Yeah, it's very similar to other cities, actually. It was about 2.5, 3 years ago that I came in. Right before me was Bob Mason as interim. He was our police chief. Before him, the administration really made a decision to reallocate infrastructure funds from water, sewer, and streets to support general fund activities like our library, our museum, and our parks. Now, I truly, truly believe those actions were with good intentions, but the unintended result is that we now have failing infrastructure. And it also put us in a position where we started to rely on those funds. And we are at a point where we have to keep the money in water, sewer, and streets so that we have quality, quantity water, we have a good sewer system, and our streets are not filled with potholes. So we have that little difference that a lot of other cities don't have. But in addition, like most other cities, we're navigating increased operational costs, inflation. It was 7% a couple of years ago. Rising personnel expenses. This year we're looking at insurance costs going up 9 to 13%. And then, oh goodness, don't get me started on this because I could talk about this for an hour. We have limited tax revenue growth due to Measures 5 and 50.
Right. We've been hearing a lot about that over the last couple years. And there's really not much that a city can do about that, right, Kenna?
That is 100% correct. That was put into place in the 90s. And truly, we get an increase of 3% every year. So when you look at inflation at 7%, 4%, you can see what happens over time.
Right. Just like anybody who has a household budget. I mean, your families here are seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So tell us, what is your budget deficit going into this coming fiscal year that you're planning for right now?
So we're looking at a budget deficit of about $750,000, around $750,000, and we're looking at a lot of things to do for that. You know, we started this when I came in about 2.5 years ago. We really started to do conservative budgeting, and we reduced staff then too. It was incredibly difficult. We reduced services and expenses, and we've been really prioritizing since then. But there's just only so much you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of. And what did you find? Because you're a new mayor, so coming
Correct.
into this, did you think you were going to come in here and find the waste?
No, I've been involved with the city. I mean, prior to me becoming mayor, I was on city council, and prior to that was on planning commission. So,
Okay.
you know, was able to kind of see what was going to be coming down on the horizon. And I think the city has been very proactive, like Kenna was just saying, looking at, hey, we need to be thinking a couple years down the road, and what can we do proactively? So the city has already taken a lot of steps to do that. And I think, you know, kind of to Kenna's point about the reallocation of funds, at that time of the administration that was there, the priority was on, you know, building certain things in the community. And you can see the results of that. You know, we've got the parks, we have, you know, beautiful streetscape. We've really been good about historic preservation with our downtown. And that was a great investment. But those priorities have shifted, and right now we need to be taking care of infrastructure, and we need to be taking care of some of that and kind of right-sizing some of that. So I think that really helped kind of lead some of those shifting priorities as well.
Mm-hmm. And I understand that in November, residents had an opportunity to vote on, I can't remember, was it the library, museum? Tell us about that, what that levy would have offered had it passed.
Mayor Kate, would you like me to? Yeah,
Sure.
The levy. So the levy would have supported our library, our museum, and our parks, and it would have supported them at the current service level, which is a reduced service level from 2.5 years ago, and it did fail. So the community let us know what they were thinking. I do want to note that almost every levy, almost every tax issue before any city or any community in the state failed. There were very few that passed.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, Salem had its own issue with the payroll tax.
And
So-
I just added to that, I think that reflects the concerns of our citizens. You know, and you mentioned it before, everyone has household budgets, and they're looking at their concerns that they have, being able to make their dollars stretch. And so it's, I think it's a reflection of the times that we're in, but they voted pretty loudly. And I think we're listening to that as we move forward, but it does then place some limitations on what we can do moving forward.
Yeah, so moving forward. But before we do that, what do you believe might be some misunderstandings that residents have about the city budget?
Yeah, so the one that I hear the most is they seem to think that there's this big hidden pot of money.
Yes.
That if we just look for it, it's there. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, howdy, I wish it was there, right? The things we could do, but it's not. And the money we do have, you know, the other thing that it's really hard to understand, and it's very different from your budget in some ways as a household, is city funds are restricted by law, by contract. So we can't just use this pot of money for this project, right? This pot of money has to be used for the project that you receive the money for. Mm-hmm. That's another misunderstanding. And then, you know, one that it's hard to understand is that people really do think that budget cuts can be easily absorbed without impact, right?
Because they're looking at a budget. Oh, well, you have millions of dollars.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And until it really happens, they don't see that impact. Until you lose your library, or you lose your museum, or you close your parks or sell them, which is what we're looking at doing, you don't really understand, right? Because you're not living it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I know that you had a work session, I believe, a couple nights ago with the public. What happened there? What information did you share with them, and what did you hear back from the public?
So we had two. We had a work session on March 11th. Mayor, is that correct? No. The work session was February 28th or
Correct,
25th.
yeah.
Yes, and then we had a budget FAQ on March 11th.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm really proud of the city and their staff for doing a lot to help educate the community and being open and available to answering questions and really making the time and the space to have some town halls where people can come in and have a very kind of informal, I can come in, I can ask my questions, and I don't have to get up during a city council meeting, which there's a lot of procedure, a lot of formality, and you have 3 minutes to talk during public comment period. So it's been great to really see, I think, a concentrated effort on how do we educate the community about some of the misunderstandings with the budget, and how do we also offer sort of a civics 101 on like the buckets of money. We've talked a lot about buckets of money, and you can't move money between the buckets and allocations and how that works. And I think that it's starting to help. We're starting to see a better understanding, at least, of how that process works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what kinds of questions did people want to know?
Well, the ones that you would really expect, right? How much does it cost to do this? Where can we cut? How big is our budget, right? And that was a discussion, too, because our general fund is significantly lower than other cities of our size. And so we're doing a lot with less. Mm-hmm. Mayor, you were there. What else did they?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions when they see a budget. And again, the city is really transparent. The budget is out online, a lot of budget documents out there. But when people see a line item and they kind of go, that's a lot of money. But then when you start to break it down for them and you say, actually, that number includes this, this, and this, let's really break it down for you. They do start to understand, like, okay, that maybe what they see as like a salary and benefits. Why are we paying people so much money? People are making way too much money. And it's like, well, not really. When we break it down, then they kind of go, oh yeah, that is true. And it takes money to maintain things and build things. And so I think they do see that, but I think a lot of the questions are just kind of like how it works. And a lot of questions I think about, like, well, why can't you just take money from here and put it here? Like, why, you're getting money over here, and then why can't you just money in and money out? Versus, a typical household budget, you just have money coming in, and then you can kind of transfer it as you see fit throughout the year, and really cities have more limitations on that.
Right. I've heard a lot of people say we should run our government like a business, and government isn't a business.
Or can't volunteers? I think that's another question we get. Can't volunteers do that? Can't we just have volunteers do that? And, again, there's limitations to that as well.
Yeah. And people have found volunteerism you get volunteerism fatigue. It's like they're excited in the beginning, but at the end of the year, the people aren't showing up as much as the enthusiasm predicted at the beginning.
Yeah. And we have wonderful volunteers. We have a strong history of that in the community, but I think we don't want to burn them out, and we want to make sure that we're keeping our volunteers happy and engaged.
So I just want to let our listeners know, if you've just joined us, I'm talking with the mayor of Independence, Kate Schwarzler, and the city manager of Independence, Kenna West. We're talking about the City of Independence budget challenges. And so you've been doing quite a bit of outreach trying to get people to understand the budget issues. But as a city government and then eventually the council, what kinds of things, Kenna, are you expecting to show the city council for your recommendations?
So at our first work session, we took some direction from the council on where to go. On March 25th, we are going to be talking about answers to those questions and our recommendations. We are looking at selling parks.
Selling parks?
Selling parks. There are 4 parks that have been designated to take a look at to see if we can sell them. That's one-time money, but it can help us get over a particular hump, perhaps, and then maybe we'll find another revenue source.
But you won't get your parks back.
We will not get our parks back. But these are either unimproved parks or used very rarely. Riverview Park is not one of them.
Oh, good.
Let's just be clear. Right.
Yes.
They're generally, really mainly unimproved parks or unimproved land. And then we are looking at consolidating the museum into the library and selling the museum building. There are 2 there's the upside to that, where the museum building, there is a mortgage on it, so that would remove the mortgage from the general fund, and it would also reactivate it, put it back on the tax rolls. So that is an option. We are looking at, let me see, Mayor, we've got those two major things that are probably the most important.
Yeah, those are the ones I think that have caught people's attention the most, right? I mean, when we start talking about selling parks, I mean, we don't take that lightly. And
right, it caught my attention.
Yes, absolutely. And selling buildings and selling these assets, I think it has helped, unfortunately, get the message out to the community like, we are at the point of kind of looking at options for that, and options that nobody feels good about. But at the same time, I think we're trying to be very respectful of the community. We heard from them loud and clear when the levy failed. They don't want more taxes. They don't want more fees. And so we're doing what we can to really work within our means.
Mm-hmm. Did you share that information at the FAQ session, and what kind of reaction did you get from residents who were there?
I think many of them had been at the work session and were relatively educated.
Okay.
So on what we're looking at, and they don't particularly like it. I mean, we talk about least worst option.
They'll still have an opportunity to weigh in, right, during a budget committee process?
Yes.
You are correct. And we're very proud of that, actually.
Okay, well, tell us about it then.
Do you want to go ahead, Mayor?
You go ahead.
I'll go ahead.
Start.
Okay,
Sorry.
so we've kind of changed our process a little bit, and we had the work session, and then we had the March 11 FAQ. We had a survey out where they could respond to what's important to them, museum, park, library, and where would they like us to cut, museum, park, library, and what type of revenue would they like us to look at, a fee, a levy, right? And then we also have a question FAQ out there asking them to give us questions. Then March 19th at 4 to 6:30 is our next interactive, where people can come in and they can really vote on, this is what we want. And they get to drop in poker chips into the things that are important for them.
Okay.
We'll count the poker chips, and then we know where we're going. And then Mayor and Kate and I will be at the very end, where they can just tell us what their ideas are, and I'll write it up on a board. And then we'll take that back with us to the March 25th work session.
Okay.
And then our process, to make it more transparent, we've added a budget committee member and a council member who will sit with staff at the staff level discussions from day one all the way through.
Okay.
So they can really talk about what we do and that we really don't have a pot of money anywhere.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's been really helpful. I think the community is paying attention to that and listening, that we are trying to be as transparent as we at all possibly can. On the one end, you have people that do think, there's a secret pot of money, or even when we explain the budget document is out online and you can go look at everything and review everything, it's right there. And they're like, you have a secret set of books. And it's like, I can tell people nobody has the time to create a whole other secret set of books to be working from. And so I think by adding people in to see that process and being able to communicate that out, hopefully people are understanding that the city really is partners at the table with trying to come up with solutions to this.
And so what kind of turnout have you been having at all of these different community events?
Quite good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Good.
we were, I think all the seats were filled except for maybe the very first row. No one wants to be in
Nobody
the first
wants
row.
to be in the first row. I don't want to get called on.
So,
Yeah.
which is really good. I mean, getting people to come out and talk to us is difficult for almost all cities.
They're busy, not to
Yeah.
mention maybe there's some intimidation with, meeting government officials.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Go ahead, Mayor.
I was going to say, and I think in addition to that, we've really been doing a lot to try to just have more kind of one-on-one and small group conversations with people. City Manager West had started doing office hour, or like coffee hours with the community where people could drop in. Also, the 60-second city council videos have been really popular because people, I think it has engaged a different group of people that are like, oh, I got the highlight reel of the city council meeting in a minute, and it has helped them ask questions. And I think we've been seeing some new faces at City Hall in the audience, which I think for me is a real win.
Yes.
when we see that. And then I've been having weekly office hours and then also doing town halls. And so I think people are seeing that level of engagement, and it has made them more inclined to come in and I think participate in some of these conversations that we're having with people.
Yeah, yeah. So we've been talking about the budget. We've been talking about your engagement. Is there anything else that you'd want to share with the residents of Independence or listeners in general before we close today?
Madam Mayor?
I, in spite of having these budget challenges ahead of us, I think our community is just really remarkable. I think the people and the conversations that I've been having, even when they're around tough topics, instead of dividing us, we still have the opportunity to help bring people to the table. And I think there's an acknowledgement of we want to come ultimately help be a part of the solution, as hard as that is. But that's been really heartening to me to have those conversations where people acknowledge this is tough and this is hard, but we need to come together as a community and help figure this out. And we're all in it together.
Yep.
And so I'm happy to see and hear that.
Great. Any last words from you, Kenna West?
You know, to our community, your involvement and your voice really matter. Mm-hmm. We hear you. And we're working to do what we need to do for you. So come talk to us. We're listening.
Great. Thank you very much. Mayor Kate Schwarzler and Kenna
Mayor
West.
Kate.
Mayor
Yeah,
Kate.
Mayor Kate. That's
and
what we go
Kenna
by, yeah.
West with the City of Independence. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melanie.